been 1 year since the state of Missouri shut down because of the pandemic. We'll look back at the early impact on businesses.
Former Officer Derek Chauvin's fellow officers are taking the stand in his murder trial. I'm Michael George with what they say about when police should and shouldn't use force.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Today marks 1 year since the statewide shutdown in Missouri in response to the pandemic. This is KOAM News at 5. On April 6, 2020, the statewide stay-at-home order went into effect. At the same time, a stay-at-home order went into effect in Joplin specifically. That closed bars, restaurants, small businesses, and hair salons across the state for what would be a month. The owner of Halo Salon in Carthage says it was a scary time.
It was pretty difficult, especially for our stylists. We were just nervous for them because we didn't know. We were going through the process of getting the PPP so we could still get them paid. We were just kind of figuring things out day to day.
Tonight at 6, we're going to hear from one of the stylists at the salon and from the Joplin mayor on what he thinks could have been done differently. The Joplin Police Department has released its annual report, which shows crime is down overall in the city. Chief Roland Sloan says they saw an overall 9% drop in crime in 2020. Two of the biggest drops were traffic related. There were increases in violent crime in the city, such as homicides and assaults. The city also saw an increase in unlawful use of a weapon.
There were 91 incidents with weapons this year that we noticed. That's concerning to us. That's something obviously we're looking into when people are carrying weapons more than they have before. We're recovering a lot more. We're having a lot more stolen out of vehicles in different places than we've ever had before. So it's kind of a disturbing trend that we're following pretty closely.
One number that went down was reports of domestic violence, but that's causing concern for JPD and the Lafayette House. Tonight at 6, we're going to hear more from those officials on why that drop is not necessarily a good thing. This is Election Day across much of the four states. Voters in some communities in southwest Missouri and northeast Oklahoma are deciding school bonds, tax issues, and school board and municipal races. Polls close tonight at 7. You can get results this evening at KOAMNewsNow.com and on KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14 and KOAM News at 10 here on Channel 7. Nick Kelly joins us now. Another nice day overall, but boy, it's been breezy out there, Nick.
Yeah, all signs that our next storm system now is ready to work in. In fact, we've seen some signs of it sneak in already today. A couple of showers working across areas from Yates Center and Iola and points north. And again, that's just a few random showers skirting through. Otherwise, we sat pretty quiet underneath partly sunny skies today. That being said, we have a severe thunderstorm watch across northern and central parts of Kansas because of a cold front and the dry line parked right across the western parts of the Sunflower State. That will serve as a focal point for thunderstorms to get going, and we'll have to be careful tracking these, and some of those could clip us later on tonight. In the meantime, it's mild if not warm, with most of us in the mid-70s. A quick look at the planner has us dry for much of the evening, but come midnight and during the overnight, we'll watch for those thunderstorm chances to increase. A complex scenario, Dal, but we'll break down how the system will unfold here in just a bit.
All right, see you then. In day 7 of the Derek Chauvin trial, jurors heard from Minneapolis police officers who train other officers in crisis intervention and use of force. Prosecutors hope to prove that Chauvin's knee on the neck of George Floyd was unauthorized and what ultimately killed him. Reporter Michael George has the latest.
A Minneapolis police officer who trained Derek Chauvin on how to perform approved neck restraints was on the stand today.
Is this an MPD trained neck restraint?
No, sir.
In cross-examination, Chauvin's defense showed various angles of George Floyd's arrest and suggested the position was actually an approved face-down handcuffing position, and that Chauvin's knee was not on Floyd's neck, but rather on his back and shoulders.
Does this appear to be a prone hold that an officer may apply with his knee?
Yes.
Earlier, Sergeant Kerr Yang confirmed Chauvin underwent a 40-hour training in 2016 in crisis de-escalation. Chauvin's attorneys suggested the crowd watching Floyd's arrest was also in crisis mode, and Chauvin had to deal with them, too. On Monday, the Minneapolis police chief testified that continuing to kneel on Floyd's neck once he was handcuffed and laying on his stomach violated department policy.
Would he be willing to answer those?
Before the jury arrived, Morris Hall appeared over video from the county jail where he's being held on unrelated charges. Hall was in the car before Floyd's arrest, and his attorney says if called to testify, he'll invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
That he was in the car puts him in very close proximity with Mr. Floyd, very close in time before he's alleged to have ingested drugs.
Prosecutors want to keep Hall far away from the witness stand.
Opposing counsel has suggested almost an alternative perpetrator.
The judge says he'll make a final decision about whether Hall will be called to testify later this week. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
A member of George Floyd's family often occupies a reserved seat in the back corner of the Minneapolis courtroom during the trial. Today, his family held a prayer vigil outside the courthouse. Shooting broke out this morning in Frederick, Maryland, about 45 miles northwest of Washington, D.C. The military confirms it was a Navy medic who opened fire at a business complex, injuring 2 sailors, then headed to nearby Fort Detrick, where he was gunned down by base personnel. At last report, 1 victim is in critical condition. The other is scheduled to be released from the hospital tomorrow. Life is trickling back into the Guatemalan highlands following the devastation of back-to-back hurricanes last fall. The resulting flooding ruined crops and displaced more than 300,000 Guatemalans. Some are part of a larger migration of people, mostly from Central America, looking for work in the United States, although the border is closed. Coming up in Health Watch, speeding up the vaccine rollout.
President Biden sets a new target for states to make all adults eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. I'm Natalie Brand at the White House with the race to vaccinate, plus what's behind the latest increase in cases.
And later, the push for more diversity among commercial airline pilots. The American College of Physicians says shorter antibiotic regimens may be better and safer for certain infections. The group issued new best practice advice for treating acute bronchitis with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, community-acquired pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and cellulitis, a skin infection. The group says unnecessarily long courses of antibiotics for these conditions can contribute to antibiotic resistance. Last month, President Biden called on all states to make all adults eligible for the coronavirus vaccine by May 1st. Well, now he's moving up the deadline. Reporter Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
President Biden visited a vaccination site in Northern Virginia on Tuesday.
Get all your friends, tell them, get a shot when they can.
The president wants states to make all adults eligible for COVID-19 vaccines by April 19th if they haven't already done so.
That doesn't mean they will get it that day. It means they can join the line that day if they have not already done that beforehand.
The Biden administration says it has delivered 150 million vaccine doses in the president's first 75 days in office. His team sees a race to get more Americans vaccinated, with the number of new cases rising for 4 straight weeks.
Whether it explodes into a real surge or not remains to be seen. I think that the vaccine is going to prevent that from happening.
CDC data shows more than 75% of senior citizens have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine. Health officials say the rise in new cases is coming predominantly from younger adults. There's also increasing concern about outbreaks from school-aged children, but not necessarily from kids in the classroom.
We are learning that many outbreaks in young people are related to youth sports and extracurricular activities. According to CDC guidance, these activities should be limited.
But it's not just youth sports that are a concern, with officials specifically mentioning the nearly full ballpark at Monday's Texas Rangers baseball game with no social distancing limits. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Yesterday's attendance at that Rangers home opener is a record for a sporting event in the U.S. since the pandemic began. A new study finds children whose mothers experienced stressful events during pregnancy handle stress differently when they become adults. Researchers in Boston found exposure in the womb to inflammation-promoting substances called cytokines is linked to how the adult brain responds to negative stressful situations more than 45 years after birth. The day of the week you have surgery might impact how long you stay in the hospital. Researchers from the Cleveland Clinic looked at patients who underwent elective spinal surgery. They found patients whose operations were on Thursdays and Fridays stayed 20 to 30% longer in the hospital than patients whose procedures were on Mondays and Tuesdays. Nick Kelly is up next with his complete forecast, and a little bit later we're going to look at a proposal at the federal level to extend a ban on evictions through the end of the year.
No surprise when we had another warm day across the area, a continuing trend that we've seen throughout the course of the previous Easter holiday weekend. Yesterday we shot to 77 for an afternoon high, dropped back only in the lower 60s, and despite that strong south wind in place, we did have more cloud cover, so that meant temperatures, if you want to consider it, a little bit cooler, but still kind of warm, with most of us pushing back near 75 so far today. Haven't seen much action on the Skywatch storm tracker. While most of us stayed dry throughout the day, we did have a weak area of showers come out of central Kansas, and whatever's left of it is mainly a few showers around Burlington, Garnett, and Iola. That's all we have to start this evening out, but I'm already watching this severe thunderstorm watch across central Kansas, because you can see a storm getting going already east of Dodge City and south of Kinsley in southwestern parts of Kansas. This is going to be ahead of the cold front and the dry line that'll head our way. We'll see more thunderstorms fire up, and it'll be interesting to see how the evening plays out in terms of how those storms will move along. But we're quiet right now. We'll call that partly sunny from our station's rooftop. Looking back toward Joplin, 75 with the south wind at 25, gusting to 36. That's keeping everybody mainly in the mid-70s. A few spots as warm as 77 in Fort Scott, Nevada, maybe 71 in Independence, but definitely warm, if not very mild again, because of our south breeze at 10 to 25, and gusts pushing near 30 once again. This evening is going to be a bit interesting. We'll drop to 68 by midnight, but I think that's the warmest we'll be for tomorrow, and then we'll drop back into the lower to middle 60s by tomorrow morning as we see that cold front roll in, and those thunderstorm chances too. So I'll take you back to the maps and I'll break down where the fronts are. We can see this cold front working into western Kansas now. That's the front that'll bring in better rain and thunderstorm chances tonight, along with this upper low finally working across the Rockies and into the Central Plains. There could be two different, very plausible scenarios that unfold in terms of the storms out west. We could see the cluster of storms get going. They're already doing so right now. They could possibly work toward the east, and as the bow or outflow comes out from these thunderstorms, that could clip our northern counties and cause more thunderstorms to develop between 10 o'clock and through the overnight as they work into our area. This could definitely be a severe threat before we get the morning commute underway. We can see this low severe risk from, let's say, Bronson, Chanute, Fredonia, points north and west. If we had any good severe threats with this setup, it's mainly large hail up to $half size and wind gusts near 65 miles per hour. We'll keep an eye on those between 10 o'clock tonight and 4 o'clock in the morning. Another likely scenario, most of the severe weather might stay just to our north, but as long as that cold front still rolls on through, we're going to have chances for rain and thunderstorms overnight. And as we go into tomorrow morning, then on the backside of this system, we'll see additional showers late tomorrow afternoon, and certainly for tomorrow night and going into Thursday. As far as what this front will do with temperatures, we'll drop to 63 at 7 a.m., 56 by noon, and maybe a quick rebound to 58 by 4 o'clock. But we will trend cooler behind this front as it rolls on through. We'll drop to 46 Thursday morning, 66 on Thursday with some showers still lingering around, 78 Friday, 64 Saturday, 75 on Sunday. I think we have plenty of dry time for the weekend, Dow, but we'll keep an eye on at least some thunderstorm chances that'll try to sneak in.
And I guess we are about due for some rain. It is spring after all.
We certainly are.
Thanks, Nick. Coming up, some commercial airlines look to hire more diverse pilots as travel ramps back up in the U.S. First, though, we honor a local veteran. Orville Scott served in the U.S. Army from 1950 to 1953. The Joplin native was stationed in Korea, and we salute Private Second Class Orville Scott a four-state hero. Federal officials propose banning foreclosures until next year. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also recommends giving borrowers who are behind on their payments more time, providing a pre-foreclosure review period. That would restrict servicers from starting foreclosures until 2022. As of February, nearly 3 million homeowners were behind on their mortgages. If you didn't file your 2017 tax return, you could be at risk of losing out on your chunk of more than $1.3 billion. The IRS says about 1.3 million taxpayers have unclaimed tax refunds from 2017. Nearly half of those refunds are worth more than $865. The window to claim the funds closes on May 17th. In the airline industry, less than 6% of all pilots and flight engineers in the U.S. are women, and only about 10% are Black Americans, Asian, Hispanic, or Latino. United Airlines, the only major U.S. airline to own a flight school, is announcing its new plan to train 5,000 pilots by 2030. At least half will be women or people of color. Reporter Errol Barnett has the story.
2 decades ago, near runways like these, a Texas girl was discovering her love of aviation.
My grandmother would take my sisters and I to the airport to watch the airplanes take off and land.
A 6-year-old, Tashiana Smith, was hooked.
We could actually smell that jet fuel for a couple of days, and I still love that smell today.
So you've been addicted to jet fuel since you were a kid?
Yes, sir.
24-year-old Smith is on a lifelong quest to become a commercial airline pilot, an expensive ambition. Flight training costs an average of $100,000. So over the years, Smith earned several scholarships through nonprofit organizations. She's following in the flight path of people like Marianne Schaefer, a 32-year veteran in the industry who is United Airlines' chief pilot.
I believe it's related to just the thrill of taking off and controlling the airplane. It really is just a feeling of empowerment.
But both Smith and Schaefer say they'd like to see more female representation in the flight deck.
They simply don't have the access or the opportunity.
In an exclusive interview with CBS News, United CEO Scott Kirby is announcing a new effort to bring balance to the flight deck.
We're excited at United to be announcing the United Aviate Academy to address the structural issues with the makeup of our pilots.
The Academy aims to enroll 5,000 new pilots by decade's end, with a benchmark that at least half will be women or minorities. Scholarships can be applied for separately. Smith, an Aviate program applicant, recently toured the flight deck of the 737-800 with Captain Schaefer.
It allows me to know and see that one day I can become a professional pilot.
Fuel for young girls' aviation dreams. Errol Barnett, Houston.
Currently, 7% of United Airlines pilots are women. The company says that's one of the highest in the industry. Southwest is the latest airline to gear up for a travel boom as more Americans get vaccinated. The airline company announced it recalled 209 pilots from a voluntary extended leave program. Those pilots head back to work on June 1st. Delta, American, and United have also made similar plans. A final check of the forecast next.